what's up with detachment? Am I supposed to be letting go of what I want? If so, I don't want to not want what I want. Yeah, exactly. So that, I think, captures the essence of it. Detachment is, I think, always a confusing topic area to explore, and it's a bit of a problematic word, I think, in many respects, because it can sound like a weird concept. It can sound cold or aloof. You go, no, hey, what are you doing today? I'm practicing detachment. Screw you too. It doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue as something warm and friendly, at least the way the English word detachment is used. It sounds a bit like disconnection. So, in a sense, though, and by the way, some people maybe do use it in that way, and if so, that's not what I'm talking about here. But if we are charitable to the word and think about, I suppose, a useful definition of it that can actually help us in our connection and help us in our own practice. In a sense, it's the opposite, that actually you can't be warm without detachment. That detachment is actually a necessary starting point, because what the detachment allows you is the room for consent, for not holding on to something so tight and not being allowed to put it down. So if you imagine the example of somebody, and you have to be their friend and you have to say nice things to them, you're not really going to get warmth from that. And the funny thing is, even if you like the person, just by sheer virtue of the fact that you have to like them and you have to say the nice thing to them, that's just going to get really weird. It's going to create a really weird dynamic. So the detachment there is going to help, because if you don't have to be nice to them, you're able to relax a little bit and then actually appreciate them and then be nice to them if appropriate on the basis of that. So I think that's really where a useful practice of detachment comes in. It's that sort of space, that room, that consent, that freedom to be able to be with what's there and then purposefully choose to engage in it. And it's actually really, really important, because a lot of the time resentment is getting built up because we feel we have to do this, that, and the other. Now, okay, on a practical level, it may be much easier for us to do things even if we don't quite like them, just to get through the day, as long as they're not incredibly toxic or challenging. It may be useful. It might be, a job that isn't our perfect job, but still it'll do for the moment, and other things tasks and hobbies and people that we get to deal with that, if we were to construct our life from scratch, we mightn't have exactly designed it that way. But still, the consent can be really important there, because at least if you start every day by stepping back from all of that and saying, I don't have to do any of this. So I'm detaching. But I'm going to choose to engage in some of these things, because this is the right choice for me right now. This is what I'm choosing. That's already really useful, because it gives a feeling of breathing space to it, and typically there will be much less resentment there, which makes you more effective at what you do. So with the question of detachment, and the question asks, I don't want to not want what I want. So yeah, of course we have certain goals that we want to pursue, and if somebody tells us, well, engage in meditative practice and let go of the goals, well, that can start to sound weird, because obviously you don't want to let go of the goals. Even if you get the idea that it's important to leave a little bit of space, you still want to know, though, that you're moving towards your goals. But really, I suppose a better way of translating detachment in that respect is to be process-focused rather than goal-focused. You can be oriented towards a goal, but you're focusing more on the present actions. So the most concrete way of thinking about what that means is the example of the orchard. So when you think of the example of an orchard, you recognize that if you go into the orchard and you're all about the apples, that's going to be a bit of a problem most of the year. I've got some apple trees, and I can assure you there aren't apples there most of the year. There's apples towards the end of the summer and onwards. Then, yeah, there can be, depending on the season, plenty of apples. But if I go out there in January or February and I demand apples, and I decide to go out and kick ass in the orchard and get me some apples, it's going to be a problem. I'm going to be disappointed. It's not going to go down well. And what I really need to do is detach from the apples. Now, that doesn't mean detach to the degree that I forget that these are apple trees. What I want to do is I want to engage, though, in the present moment with the fact that the trees are there, and I maybe want to care for the trees and nourish them and support them in whatever way is appropriate, without needing apples that day. I don't have a right to demand apples ever, and through my own effort, I can never make an apple manifest. I just can't do it. The trees are going to do that or not. It's down to a number of variables. The tree itself, the soil, the weather conditions, what kind of a season is it? Was there a plague recently of infectious insects? Or, there's any number of things that might determine what the yield or the outcome is at the end. So with detachment, I think that's what we want. We want something similar. Sure, you're going to be aware that you might like to have a quieter mind, or you might like to have better relationships, or there are reasons why you're going to practice meditating to begin with. But with that in mind, those are then the apples. You're bringing yourself back to the process, and you're detaching a bit from the goals, and you're being with what's happening in front of you in that given moment. And that's what you're working with. If you found this valuable, do like, subscribe, and share. And what's your experience? Do you have any questions or topic suggestions? You can contribute in the comments, on social media using #BodyMindSelf, or at jfl.com.